Hello and welcome to the ninth part of this video series of top-down programming logic. My name is David Thorne. I'm from Thorne Web Design. Now, last video we did then the user object creation, and we updated then the main page so we can get the active user and so on, so we can continue further in our project. Okay, obviously this is the main part that we care about. All of our code that we're doing in the background is ultimately about this one page for the time being. So our aim is to have the user completely logged in and a cookie being set and stuff like that, and knowing that at one point, once this is done, we want to know that everything is working properly, so we know that the user's logged in, and everything else we do from here is that we know that the user's logged in correctly and we got a cookie and so on and so on and so on. Okay, now because we're as we're going on, we started, this is essentially the top of the pyramid, okay, the smallest parts, and as we're going on, the bottom is increasing and increasing and increasing as we go further. Okay, now when it gets too big, to go back to the top and then redesign things gets a little bit difficult. So because we've got to one stage where we think, well, we're doing well at the moment, but we need to just do a quick retidy of things, and stuff like the communication between the different things, like the core configurations, let's say, like the domain, like the cookie name, and stuff like that, how long the person is logged in for, the host name of the database, password of the database, the structure, and stuff like that. So we need to add a little bit of structure to this, so everyone is singing off the same configuration file. Alright, now what we're going to have is essentially a config file. Now inside of this config file, this is the thing that it is going to outline all of the different things. So if the database programmer needs to know what the password is and someone decides to change the password, this can be maintained by a higher level. Okay, so they just go, okay, well, there's a new password, it's a mandate that we change the passwords every 2 weeks, whatever. We don't need to go to the programmer and tell him to change the password because he's busy doing other things, and we don't want the programmer coming to us and saying, hey, the password's changed and the connection's not working anymore. So it means that non-programmers as such can just know to come to one file and change to one file. Okay, so we're going to call it a class, and we're just going to say, simple as that, is config. All right, and all of these features in here are going to be constants. Okay, so they're things that can't be changed, and that's essentially it. So we're going to have, first of all, domain. Okay, that's the main. We'll say server. Okay, we'll say server because that's that's the main core server that it's running off. Okay, and in this example, it's going to be then example.com. All right, and we'll just say IP address equals then I don't know, let's just say make it home for the time being, and then we want login cookie name. Okay, so this is what they need to have in order to be able to log in. They need to have a login cookie. That's it, and we're going to call this then access. Okay, that's what we're going to call the cookie, is access. That's the one cookie that says, hey, yes, you can proceed with this, you've been verified. um, and login cookie expires equals then we're going to say 86,400, which is off the top of my head is 1 day. 84,686. Yeah. Anyway, whatever. It's close enough to 1 day. So we're setting a cookie for 1 day, and then login cookie path equals. We'll just say that it pertains to the whole of the websites, and constant login cookie domain equals then example.com. So it's going to be essentially all of the subdomains and domains that it's going to be able to access. And do we need anything else? And we'll say that it's got a version, and we'll say it's version 1 at the moment, and app name equals example application. Alright, that's about as far as we need to go for the time being. Oh, I need to sneeze. So up here we essentially need to require once config.php, and now we can access all of these different things. And the great thing about this is you actually see what the domains are and stuff like this. So where do we need to go first of all? Well, we know that the login class itself, well, that used some of this, or did it actually? No, it was in here. Okay, so we know that we've got set domain is then config, and we've got login cookie domain. All right, and then here login cookie name as well, and login cookie expires. So we've got this, and essentially we need time plus this as well, and in the config as well we're going to say test username as well, so everyone knows what the test username is. If we decide to change it, then we don't need to let everyone know what it is. Test user passwords equals password 1. All right, so we know that we used it with inside of the login the login model. See, this is where it gets complicated now. Its username is equal to this. So the things we need to clean up before we forget is essentially is the code here. Well, we know that okay, the developer knows that he needs to update this, so it's one of them things that we're like, oh, is it really? And so passwords, and username, last login there is active. That's all fine. So we know that we've updated this. So at one point when they decide, okay, we've now got databases, they know that they can go from there and they can put that test username password into a database. But ultimately, everyone else from the outside needs to know what the test username and password is in the beginning. Okay, so that's what we're testing against for now. And that should have been the only place where we used it. See, this is where it can get a little bit kind of confusing. Where do we use this, and what do we use, and so on and so on and so on. Okay, so set, and for the time being, we want this here as well. Test username. Test password. That's what we're playing with right now. Okay. Okay. The other things as well that we want to do is, now we've got the config. We kind of want to know that the application knows where stuff is. Essentially, this is more based upon the factory itself. Like we can get rid of this. Get rid of this. Like load model, for example, load interface, load model here, get login instance. These need to know where to find all of the interfaces. Okay. So once again, we kind of need another set of constants that say where these things are, because our factory doesn't want to know, it doesn't care where the files are located. The files could be located elsewhere or on the server, but essentially we just need the path to be able to get to them. So in the beginning, we're going to say require once, then defines as well, and this defines is going to define all of the paths to everything. Okay. Now, with inside of here, this will then define. First of all, is I like to use this because it's good. Directory separator is just dependent upon whether you're on Linux or you're on Windows. You want to know whether it's a / or a / and so on, and then define doc roots. Now, a test should be made on this doc root, is because essentially server document roots could have a / on the end, or it might not have a / on the end. It all depends upon how the HTTP conf is being laid out with then the document root there. So now, whenever I configure a virtual host as such, I always configure it with the / at the end, but we don't quite know. So I'm going to base it upon that there is a / already on the end. Okay. Now we want to have interfaces. So we're going to say directory first of all. So we're going to start all of these with directory. So when someone's searching through, they just go directory interfaces, and that's what it's going to be. So we know that we've got doc roots, and at the moment it presides under interfaces, and after that we're going to put a directory separator, and we'll copy all of this so we don't have to write it out again. And we've got interfaces, login for the time being, models, objects, and so on. Directory login. Well, this one's more. That's going to get moved at one point. And models. And objects. Okay, so now we know that we've got some things highlighted. We can remove this defines for now, and this conf. So we've got the defines, we've got the conf. So now the factory, as such, is actually able to load these things. So by starting to do this, we can kind of we can see ourselves writing the same code here. So I'm going to write it in this load model first of all, and then I'm going to see how many times it's going to repeat itself, and if it does repeat itself, then we're going to have to find another way of doing it. So path first of all is going to be then directory, remember. Why aren't you showing me that then? Huh? Okay, directory models is where we're going. That's where we want to go. So our model name is going to be then we're just going to change it to mname equals then string to lower, and we're going to say then if file exists path dot mname dot model dot php. So if the file does exist, we're going to require it once because we're going to need it once, and that there. Okay. Now the model name as such is we could go on and even further and check that the class exists as well, but that's just taking it a bit too far for the time being. Return true. If it's not loaded, then we're just going to return false here. Now once again, we're going to copy this and come to our interface one, and interface name here. So we'll just change this to iname, and interface, change this, and change this. Done. So if we know that this one exists, then we're going to return it, and we know that they all use that naming convention for it as well. So it should all work out. Get login model. All right, that's enough for now. So we know now that the files will get loaded. Load model, login instance. Okay, a couple of comments that need to be made, but we're not going to do that in the video. Okay, I see this one for the time being. This one video being done. This one essentially needs to move into here, this login class, and we need to rename it. So let's close it down here. Login.objects.php. There we go. That's that done. So that would be. The other things to think about now is that essentially this in the file it doesn't care about whether this has been loaded or not, because essentially it should have been loaded with inside of the factory. Load interface. So when we do go ahead and use this get login instance, for example, get login instance, we know that the factory load interface has been loaded, we know that the model's been loaded, and then a new login. So that needs to be, potentially we need a load object as well. This is where the code repetition comes along. So I'm going to say load object. We'll change this to object name, and we're going to change this to O name. And objects, and directory objects. So that should all now be fine. So potentially when when we make the call for get login instance, we know that everything should have been loaded, and get login instance, and in here then we need to say load objects login as well, and so we're just going to add an if here, if this and this and this. Oops. So essentially, let's just put this on one line, because we can't load a login object without knowing that everything is all fine. Return false. Okay, so that's the whole idea of this, is that we need to know that login interface has been loaded here as such, okay, and the model gets loaded here as such, and then the object gets loaded here as well. Okay, if all of these things are loaded, then we can load a new login. Now the other thing is that we're going to have lots of instances of things, and do we want, because obviously it's all about memory now, and if we're always doing get login instance, get login instance, get login instance all the time, or get user instance, then we're going to have all of these user instances being created, and potentially we want some form of consistency behind it. So if we've got an active user, then we want to know that we can get the active user. Now that's being stored inside of this one, okay, but the next best way would be to store this one login instance so it doesn't get destroyed. Alright, because we might need it later on. You never know. You know, it might be a case of you don't know. You don't know. So that would be another thing that we could do, but that would be more bottom to top. So it's working for the time being. So we just add a small note here that we instances array could be made within the class so as to save this object. That's it for now. Okay, so this is this one video done, and I think I'm pretty much done for today, to be honest with you. Okay, I hope you're learning something. I mean, I'm not kind of really teaching you PHP here. If you're new to PHP and you're just watching this, then you should essentially be learning PHP and seeing how things are working. You know, this is kind of real-time programming. It's not just a case of teaching you what a variable is and this, that, and the other is. I'm using all of these things all of the time, and it's building up and building up, and you can see that it's not. This is a lot cleaner code. You know, all of this here is that we've got however many lines of code. Okay, what 48 there, 48, 33 lines of code, and that's easy to read. You know, you can see what these things are doing, and they all go off and do different things. Yes, to test, you would have to go through to check. What we'll do is I don't really want to actually do any testing on this. Okay, the whole idea of this is just that we're doing it, and if I started testing it, then these videos could go on for hours, if not days. I know that it would probably take maybe an hour to test this and to get rid of all of the bugs and so on, because there's definitely going to be bugs in this. If I run this code for the first time, I know it definitely won't work. There's no questioning that, but I know that I've written the code in such a way that it's structured, and I know where things are, and I know things aren't overlapping with each other. That's the main problem, I believe, from my own personal experience, is when you start overlapping code. That's where you have problems. Yes, it takes a little bit of time to debug it, because you're going from one file to the next file to the other file, but essentially it's consolidated inside of the factory. So if you're making a call to the factory, that you know that the place where the problem starts is at the factory, and then you just need to debug the factory, and then bit by bit you find out where the problem is. And then you go on to the next step, and the next step, and the next step, till you've actually found all of the bugs in that one stage. And fixing the bugs in the first stage predominantly fixes half of the bugs in the second stage, and then you fix the bugs in the second stage, fixes half the bugs in the third stage, and so on and so on and so on, until the bugs actually become so small that they become quick to fix. You know, a lot of the bugs lie at the top level, which is normally a small element, as in 33 lines of code is normally where the main bugs lie. Okay. Alright, so that's it for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.